Hello and thanks for joining us for Going Bush, the show that is about all things forestry in Australia.
A unique industry it is too. For example, on today's episode we've got everything from cows to unmanned flying machines. So sit back, relax and enjoy Going Bush. This one.
And off you go. In Andrew's case, you hope there's a large and aggressive tiger snake not far away. The heartland, Andrew, of the state's native timber production. You no longer have people standing out in the bush able to be getting hit by trees. Never felt safer in my life, Andrew.
Going bush, going bush, going bush.
There is an eye in the sky. Oh, this is going to end well.
Today on Going Bush, how Queensland cattle farmers are cashing in by joining the forest industry.
We look at certification and how Australia's forests stack up.
Forestry goes high-tech, how drones are changing the shape of the forest industry.
And getting rid of a hard-to-kill weed.
All right, well, we find ourselves on the central coast of Queensland, inland a bit. There's a lot of big country here, Nick. It's a lot of cattle country.
Certainly is, Andrew. I just heard the call of a cow drifting across the Mary River there. And a lot of those farmers who run those cattle in this area are increasingly turning to the timber on their farms to provide an added stream of income. In Queensland, private forestry is a big deal. In fact, around 60% of native timber in the state comes from private property. There's an estimated 3 million hectares of private native forest in southern Queensland alone. It's a massive area, but the vast majority of it isn't managed correctly.
We've been going for about 12 years in this process, and what we've noticed over that time is that a much larger number of landholders now are maintaining trees across their landscape. And I suppose a lot of that is a reflection of the better values that we're actually getting out of the saw log. So they're seeing now that it's a very worthwhile dual enterprise, grazing and timber production.
One great example of using private forestry on grazing country is Owen Thompson's farm near Gundyah. His family has been on this land since the 1870s.
My wife and I have grandchildren now that are the 6th generation to get their feet dirty in the same bit of ground. So we've sort of got a fairly continuous link with this particular area and some of the parcels of land here that are contained within our property.
Like most in the area, the farm is primarily a cattle grazing property, but unlike some of the properties in the district which were stripped bare of trees in the early years, the Thompson family have always looked after their forests and today are reaping the rewards.
There's no reason why harvesting on this property can't continue for many more generations, because each time a tree is taken, they let 2 others grow back in its place.
And unlike cattle, which need to be sort of moved on annually, a tree can stay in the landscape until such time as you need it.
One thing that my grandfather twigged to was that these trees, you don't need to look after them in a drought. You don't need to feed them. They keep growing for you. Probably 30% on a year in, year out basis of the property's turnover is in the trees. That's the basis. The cash crop is the cattle. They're the day-to-day things. But the trees provide the capital injections. They provide the relief money, the emergency bank.
The forest does need to be maintained. That means thinning out the naturally occurring regrowth and smaller stunted trees, allowing the larger trees to thrive.
Yes, it's a very high input cost. By managing it carefully and thinking about it and with the benefit of knowledge, it doesn't have to be prohibitively expensive, but if you let it get out of hand, then it's very expensive to climb on top of it again. So the trick to it is, as with all things, a bit of maintenance all the time.
To help give farmers advice and get them set up, private organisations such as Private Forestry Service Queensland is scouring the countryside looking for landowners who want to manage their forests.
I think in the long term, it is a absolutely defensible position to keep harvesting and looking after these forests, expanding them. Certainly we could double the area of our forest cover here, and it would still have no impact on the grazing industry. And it's all there, and it doesn't need planting. You've got endemic species, they're right there. It actually improves the habitat potential of all the wildlife, etc. So there's all the pluses and virtually no negatives.
The potential of private forestry is huge. For spotted gum in southern Queensland alone, there's 700,000 hectares available. That amount has the potential to transform the forest industry in the state.
Spotted gum is particularly good. It's probably the best of the lot of them, and it covers 600,000 or 700,000 hectares across southern Queensland, so in the private sector. So it's quite a significant area of forest. And indeed, if we could get that area managed, because we would be producing 700,000 cubic metres of saw log a year across that country, and you wouldn't even see a dent in those forests each year. So you're only going through and selectively taking out maybe 20 or 30 stems per hectare over that period, every 10 years or so. And but that's actually twice as much as the whole of Queensland is producing at the moment.
Private Forestry Service Queensland is a not-for-profit group dedicated to helping landowners firstly manage, then sustainably harvest forests on their land. Private landowners need to follow a code of practice to carry out forestry operations on their property, which relates to environmental issues such as the retention of habitat trees, streamside buffers, drainage and minimal soil disturbance.
The group also holds a number of field days throughout the year aimed at finding new landowners who want to enter the forest industry. To find out more, check out www.pfsq.net.
And if you want to know more about private forestry or indeed forestry in general, then this is the spot for you. It's the Woodworks Museum and Interpretive Centre near Gympie.
It is quite remarkable, as you say. There's plenty of information about how it's done today, but also a huge display of forestry of yesteryear, which to my mind, Andrew, looks like a lot of hard work.
And danger.
And danger. We will have more of Going Bush after the break.